Hey, everybody. Happy Sunday. I hope you're all having a great weekend. Thank you so much for joining in tonight to talk about dual enrollment. I'm really excited to talk about this topic. It's one I've been talking with families about a lot over the last couple of weeks because the dual enrollment application has opened for our local area community college for students who want to take classes this summer. So I thought it would be really helpful to hop on now and just share some general information about dual enrollment with all of you. And then for those of you who are in the Raleigh, North Carolina area who may have students looking to pursue dual enrollment at Wake Tech Community College, which is common for some of our students in the Raleigh area, I'll have a bonus session that will go a little bit more into detail on things you should know about dual enrollment with Wake Tech. And so if you're tuning in from outside the Raleigh area, this first bit of information, these first three things to demystify dual enrollment will be perfectly relevant to you and your student. And then if you want to stick around, you're welcome to, but it will be more location specific. So welcome. Looks like people are coming in. So great to see you all. As you're coming in to get settled, if you could just either give me a thumbs up, put a comment in the chat, just let me know that the sound is working, the video is working. That is always super helpful for me. And then also, if you could let me know where you're tuning in from. So like I said, I'm here in the Raleigh, North Carolina area. We have a few offices here in Raleigh and in Apex, and then we also have an office up in Maine, and we work with students all over the US. So I know that some people may be tuning in from places outside of North Carolina. So it's always great to know where you're coming from. And then also, if you want to drop in the chat and let me know what year your student is, that's helpful too. So this information will be relevant really to students of any age who plan to take dual enrollment coursework. So there's a little bit of a different process if you have freshmen or sophomores versus juniors or seniors, but we'll be covering all of that. Okay, great. So we've got someone here from Cary. I'm seeing lots of thumbs up. Raleigh, Wake Forest, fantastic. Welcome, everybody. And so it looks like all systems are a go. So that's great. For those of you who have found that chat feature, that is perfect. So go ahead and continue using that, using the thumbs up. You can put questions in the chat and I'll see them. And I'll answer them sometimes throughout the session as well as at the end. So you can definitely go ahead and use that. I see some familiar names as well. Awesome. All right. So we've got a lot to talk about tonight. If you have been to a Facebook Live event with me before, welcome back. If you are new here, welcome. I am Gina from Advantage College Planning, and I like to come on Facebook Live and share information to really de-stress and demystify this process for students and families. Tonight, we will be talking about dual enrollment. And usually the sessions are about 20-25 minutes. Tonight's will go a little bit longer if you stay for the full thing, because I'll also be talking about Wake Tech specific information after talking about, in general, dual enrollment. All right. Perfect. So let's jump in. Let's talk about how colleges view dual enrollment. What is dual enrollment? Let's just make sure, I always like to make sure we are all starting off on the same page, understanding what these terms mean. So dual enrollment, or sometimes you might hear it referred to as DE, or some students in the Raleigh area refer to it as CCP classes. So that's Career and College Promise classes through the North Carolina Community College system. So many acronyms. It all means enrolling at it as a high school student, also enrolling at the same time in another institution, which in this case is typically going to be at a local four-year college or university or community college system that's within the community of the student's high school. So dual enrollment is generally viewed as an opportunity for a student to enhance their academic experience beyond what their high school offers. Okay, but dual enrollment, it varies a little bit from school to school, and the way that colleges are looking at the dual enrollment classes really depends a lot on what those classes are. Okay, so not all dual enrollment is viewed equally. We're going to get a little bit more into the weeds on that. So the first thing to understand is that if your student is taking core academic classes as a dual enrollment student, core academic would be English, history, math, science, world language. So those 5 areas are their core. If they're taking those as a dual enrollment student, the colleges typically are going to look at those similar to the way that they would see an AP course, especially if a student is taking that dual enrollment course because their home high school doesn't offer that as an AP option. An example of that would be microeconomics. Okay, so that is a course that Wake Tech Community College or the local North Carolina Community College system offers to students. It is also an AP course that some high schools offer and some don't. Even here in the Raleigh area, we see differences on some schools offer it, some schools don't. If your student were to take AP microeconomics or microeconomics at Wake Tech Community College, if the school doesn't offer it, then that would be seen about equally. Okay. It also would be seen as equal level of rigor if your student attends one of our early college high schools where they are simultaneously completing a high school diploma and an Associate of Arts or Associate of Science degree through one of the specialized early college high schools here in the state. Colleges also will see those core classes the same as a AP weighted course if you as the student have already maxed out your options at your school. So for example, sometimes I see this with students in math, for example. So if a student has taken all of the math courses through statistics and calculus at their high school, and they get to senior year and there is quite literally no math left to take, then sometimes those students will look outside of their high school to either the community college or four-year college system to take a higher level math course. Okay, so those classes also are typically weighted similarly to an AP course in the student's GPA calculations at their high school. So here in the Raleigh, North Carolina area, that would be out of a 5-point scale on a weighted scale. Now, there's also, of course, elective courses. So students can take elective courses through dual enrollment as well. The elective courses would be similar to elective courses they could take at their high school: computer science, business, marketing, art, music, theater, etc. Okay, those are going to typically be viewed as similar to an elective course at the high school. These courses can still be valuable. These courses could still potentially add a little bit of a bump to a student's grade point average or class rank. But when colleges are reviewing the academic rigor of the transcript, the colleges are not going to say, well, they took this elective at the community college that is, so rigorous compared to taking the elective at their high school, if that makes sense. So there are differences in courses. And also, not all courses are going to transfer back to the high school weighed the same. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later as well. All right, perfect. So then, okay, next thing, let's just talk about pros and cons of this. I get this all the time with families. They're asking me, well, what are the benefits? What are the pros and cons? Okay, the pros, I've been doing this for a long time. Here's what I see are the pros. The pros are dual enrollment offers expanded course options beyond what your high school catalog offers. So for example, like I mentioned, the economics, right? If you have a student who's really interested in business, let's just say, and their high school does not offer AP micro or AP macro economics, or maybe their high school does not offer a range of additional CTE classes in business, and they want to take more than what's offered, taking some of those classes at the community college could be a great way to gain exposure in those fields and see if that really is something that they'd want to study moving forward. The doing dual enrollment can sometimes also add in flexibility to a student's schedule. So typically, students are taking dual enrollment classes online, not always, but through the community college system, my experience has been that if the students are doing dual enrollment, they're typically taking those classes online because of the logistics. If a student is trying to take those classes in person, then they have to make sure that they would be registering for a class that falls enough after the end of the school day, that they have a buffer of time that they can drive to that college campus or community college campus in time. And also you have to remember the community college system is not going to follow the same system as the high school. So their schedules are very different, right? So for logistical reasons, typically students take the classes online. And so here in Wake County, what that looks like is a student could, if they were to take a community college class in lieu of one of their high school classes, then they could apply for either a late start and come in after their first period, or an early release and leave school during their last period of the day. They would just leave campus, and then it would be up to them to do the work on their own online. So some students really like that, getting out of school a little early. It frees them up for school, for getting their schoolwork done while also maybe having a job or an internship, sports, things like that. Dual enrollment classes also give you an opportunity to explore academic interests early, right? And so again, dig into some of those CTE areas and again, potentially boost GPA and class rank depending on school policy, depending on, the type of core class that you take. But the classes that you take through dual enrollment will typically be included in your high school transcript, and most often they will be included in your GPA and your class rank. So these are real classes that do really count. Now for the cons. First off, these are real classes that really count, guys. And these are college classes. So I've had some conversations with students who are like, it's just a Wake Tech class. How hard can it be? It's an easy A. And then they don't keep up with the work. And then my straight A student now has a C on their transcript or an F. I have seen it happen. It is not great, right? And so we can, of course, provide context on their common application when they apply to colleges about the situation of whatever happened, but it's not great. So if you are going to take these classes, you have to understand this is a real class with real consequences. And college professors are not as lenient with deadlines as high school teachers are. So that can definitely be a con. Another one is, as I mentioned, most students are taking these dual enrollment classes online. And we know that is not the best learning style for some of our students. And that's also not the best delivery method for every content area. Some classes are really better if you can do them in person. So that's important to think about. Sometimes I find that students take on too many dual enrollment classes on top of their high school classes, again, thinking that they're going to get this magical GPA boost, and then they end up burning out or not performing as well in their classes overall as they would have if they didn't try too much. You also have to understand that because the classes are online, you're going to have less built-in support. You're not going to have an opportunity to build rapport with a professor. You're not going to be able to ask for a letter of recommendation if it's an online class. So these are some things to think about. And the last area that I really want to make sure that you understand is important to consider is the number of credits you could potentially be bringing into college could be a benefit or could be a curse. So a possible pro is going into college with a couple of general education classes done, whether it's through AP, test scores, or dual enrollment, can be really nice. It can give you a little bit of flexibility, especially that freshman year, take a little pressure off. But for students who are going into their four-year college experience with almost a full semester of credit already completed, let's say 24 to 30 credit hours already done, that can actually put them in a negative situation, because if they're not 100% sure what their major is, they have much less wiggle room just to take a few different gen ed classes to figure it out, right? Because they've taken all of those gen ed requirements. Sometimes students are finding it harder to actually get into the major classes that they need because they're having to register as a freshman, but really they're trying to get into sophomore classes, but they register after the sophomores, so everything's full. So before you just take a bunch of classes thinking, oh, this will put me ahead, just make sure that you're not taking so many that it could be an issue later. So pros and cons, definitely things to think about as you're trying to decide, what's going to be the best plan. And so Nadia had a great question. How are colleges looking at core courses taken at Wake Tech instead of the high school? If the high school offers them, do they wonder why? Nadia, great question. Happy to talk about that. So in general, my strong recommendation is to take the course that is offered at your high school, especially if it is an AP or IB course at the high school, instead of the Wake Tech class. if it is possible to fit it into your schedule, take the AP or IB class at your high school for a few reasons. Number one, that class will be in person. So you will be able to ask that teacher for a letter of recommendation. You will be able to go to that teacher in person for help if you're struggling with that class. Number two, colleges, especially those outside of, again, I'm using North Carolina. I know not everyone might be tuning in from North Carolina, but colleges outside of your local area aren't going to be familiar with the level of quality of the community college class that's on your student's transcript, but they know that the AP curriculum is standardized. Obviously, there is big variability from teacher to teacher, and we all know that, but they do know that AP is standardized. So if it's an option to take it as an AP in your high school, take it as an AP in your high school. I have had situations where, students had a lot of requirements they had to take. For example, students who are in marching band or band, they're required to have both semesters or a year long of band if they want to be involved and have all the leadership positions and kind of move up within band. Well, that takes up a lot of spots. I know that's similar for students who are in a lot of the other arts programs. So some students are in different academies at their high school, which again dictate that they must take certain courses. If you really want to take a class and you cannot fit it into your schedule, so again, I'm just going to, well, I keep using econ. Let me use a different class. AP Comparative Government and Politics. I'll just use a different one. So maybe you really, or no, AP Psychology. That's a great one. Maybe you really want to take AP Psychology and there is just no physical way to fit it into your schedule. Then you could choose to take the psychology at the community college, which essentially is going to cover the same content. And then in your application, we could put a little note in the additional information section. Love that section. It's like a catch-all for any little note that you need to mention. And you can give context and say, I really wanted to take AP Psychology due to all of the other requirements. I was not able to fit it into my schedule, but I'm happy I was able to take it at the community college over the summer, learned so much, looking forward to taking more psychology classes in college, right? So that's answering the question. The key thing you said, Nadia, do they wonder why? I love that you put that because you're thinking the right thing. Yes, you always want to be thinking when students are working on their applications. I'm always looking at what questions are going to come up for the admissions officers that we need to make sure are answered. I don't want any admissions officer looking at your application and saying, I wonder why. No, if there's any chance that that could come up, we need to make sure we're addressing that somewhere so that they feel really good about every aspect of your application. So I'm so glad that you brought that up. Thank you so much. Okay, so pros and cons. After the pros and cons, then again, we need to think about, is this the right opportunity for me or for your student? Okay. Dual enrollment is like anything else when it comes with college admissions and the high school experience. There are lots of opportunities. Your student can join the marching band, the theater, or they could go out for the soccer team, right? Your student could take AP US history or honors history. They could join DECA to learn more about business, or they could join FFA to learn more about agriculture, right? There are so many different options. It doesn't mean that one of those options is better than the other or is right for every single student. So what you really need to think about is, first, why would we be taking dual enrollment? What is the point? What is my goal? What am I trying to get out of this? Okay. Then you have to think about, is this aligned with my academic path? Is this aligned with my goals? Is this helping me to get to where I want to go? Online classes require self-discipline. They require time management. They require independent learning skills. And it's so crucially important that you and your student have a serious, honest conversation about where their strengths and deficits lie at this point in their academic journey. And that could change, right, as they get older. But I have seen multiple students, against my advice, enroll in a dual enrollment class and earn a grade that ultimately ends up being a negative on their academic profile rather than the positive that they thought it was going to be going into it, because they just weren't quite ready, right? It wasn't the right time. It wasn't the right plan. So if your student is someone who thrives in a structured environment with strong teacher relationships, and they are not a tech savvy, do it yourself, figure it out and persevere through kind of person, dual enrollment may not be the right fit. They may not be there yet. Okay. They have to make sure that they know this is a college class. The grade will be included on the transcript. The grade will be included in their GPA. And so we don't want to enroll thinking it's just an easy A, because that mindset will set them up for trouble. I have seen it. I don't want to see it anymore. That is my soapbox moment. So just remember, dual enrollment is a tool. As long as you're using it intentionally, it can work for you. It's an option. It's not the option for everyone. Okay. So now we're going to talk about the bonus session. So if anyone is here that is outside of the Raleigh, North Carolina area, you are welcome to stay. I'd love to have you on here. But just know that the information I'm going to be giving is a bit more specific, to this area. And so information related to your specific school district or their community college system may be a little bit different. I also will say that I am not an employee of Wake Tech Community College. I am not employed by the Career and College Promise Program. I am not employed by Wake County Public Schools, right? So these are, this information that I'm sharing is really based off of everything that I know from working with students who enroll in the CCP program, as well as working as an admissions counselor who enrolled transfer students when I worked in a four-year college prior to joining Advantage College Planning. So this is my information to share with you all. But of course, please, if you have questions, I defer to your high school counselor, to your CCP representative with your high school. Okay, that's my legal disclaimer. So let's talk about the application process. And I'm going to be clicking back and forth on things. You're going to see my eyes going crazy clicking on stuff. But I'm going to be putting some things in our chat for you as well. And I'm also going to be sharing my screen because I am a visual person and a visual learner, and people telling me things without showing them to me does not help me. And so I'm assuming you may be the same. So here we go. All right. Boom. Okay. So this that I'm showing you right now is the application page. And I'm going to put, where is my comments? I'm going to say Wake Tech CCP apply. Putting this in the chat. Posting. Okay. So this is the application for where you find the application for Wake Tech CCP. If your student has never taken a class through Wake Tech before as a dual enrollment student, this is going to be their first step. The application for summer is open right now. So if your student is wanting to take a Wake Tech class this summer, they are able to go in and do their application right now. If your student is wanting to take a Wake Tech class in the fall, that application will open up on March 2nd. So you still have a little bit of time. Okay. So your student will click Start Application. They will do a new application. They will enter in their email, their password, confirm their password, make sure that they are using their personal email and not their school email. Okay. And then put the student name, not the parents, the student's last name, not the parents, student's birthday, application term will be summer. And then they're able to choose a maximum of 2 Wake Tech pathways. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more. I'm going to stop sharing this page for just a second. Okay. Here's what you have to know. Who can apply for Wake Tech? What are the pathways I can pick? If you have, so I saw some of you said, I've got a rising sophomore, like Trisha said, she's got a rising sophomore, junior, and senior in Holly Springs. Oh, Trisha, my heart goes out to you. You are busy. Okay. So we've got a good number of sophomores on here, some juniors, and obviously Trisha's also got a senior. So if you have a 9th or 10th grade student, your student can apply for two different pathways. They can apply for the college transfer pathway, and they can also apply for a CTE, career and technical education pathway. I'm going to go into all of this. However, because they are not yet a junior, so even if it's the summer before junior year, they're still not a junior yet, okay? They will have to, once they go in to do their application, in addition to uploading their transcript, they will also have to submit some documentation that they are in the AIG program for both reading and math. And they also have to meet a minimum score on either the 10th grade PSAT, or if they don't have that score, they can take an assessment through Wake Tech to ensure that they have minimum level comprehension and ability within math and reading. Okay, so that's for 9th and 10th grade. For juniors and up, okay, you can register or you can apply for the college transfer pathway, any of the career and technical education pathways. And then there are also two like special programs, special pathways, I think they call them. One is Introduction to Medical Assisting, and the other one is Nurse Aid. So for students who are interested in something related to the medical field, or maybe who want to go to school for nursing, we're going to look at those. Okay. So, okay, let me show you the pathways, because this is what you have to do before your student even goes to this apply page. I need them to look at the pathways. Okay. So, because this is where students make the biggest mistake. And if you choose the wrong pathway, it's a mess. Changing pathways is not easy. So you want to make sure you're picking the right pathway from the jump. All right, so let me show you let's start with the college transfer pathway. And again, I am going to open this up again. Excuse my crazy eyes all over the place. Okay, so stream, and I'm going to share screen, transfer pathways, share. Okay, so, and let me also put this in our chat. Comments, transfer. Okay. Transfer pathways. Okay, so college transfer pathways. There are two primary college transfer pathways, the Associate of Arts and the Associate of Science. You can see there are also other ones here, right? Teacher prep, engineering, visual arts. So you can definitely look at those. The main one that I recommend to students is the Associate in Arts transfer pathway. And there's a reason why. There's always a method to my madness, I promise. I tell students this all the time. You just have to trust me. So I typically recommend the Associate of Arts pathway for most students because it does offer the broader options for classes that the students typically take, in my experience. Also, classes within this pathway tend to align with the general education courses that students will be taking in college. So let's look at these two pathways. Okay, here's the Associate in Arts pathway. So if a student is admitted into the Associate of Arts college transfer pathway, they are eligible to then go ahead and register for any classes that are on these two pages. However, there are some classes that they won't be able to take because of prerequisites, and some classes I just flat out don't recommend that they take. So let's talk about those. So students are eligible to take English classes. They're eligible to take a maximum of 6 semester hours of credit. So in theory, they could take both of these English classes. These are basically your college level English 101 classes. I do not typically recommend these classes for a couple of reasons. Number one, go back to what I said in the first half of this. If your school offers it as an AP or IB, you should take that instead of a dual enrollment class. These are going to essentially be a similar concept to AP English Language and AP English Literature. So you should take those if you can instead of these. Okay. The other thing is, let's say a student says, no, I just want to take English 111 at Wake Tech. Gina doesn't know what she's talking about. That's fine. However, if you choose that journey, you will need to take both of these English classes at Wake Tech in order to get Wake County High School credit for one English class. So you have to take a full year at Wake Tech to get done what you could have done in one semester at the high school. So I don't recommend you do this, but proceed with caution if you do, okay? Where the classes are that students typically do end up choosing often are in this humanities, fine arts, communication section. In the Associative Arts, you can take a maximum of 9 semester hours of credit. So as you can see, that means you can choose a total of up to 3 classes from this list. Some of them have a prerequisite course. So for example, your student would not be able to enroll in public speaking because they haven't yet completed English 111. Okay, so that kind of rules out some of the classes. However, if you have a student who really is into like philosophy and ethics, and obviously the high schools don't really offer a lot of courses in that vein, what they could do is if they take AP English Language and they score a 3 or better on the AP English exam in May of their junior year, in July, they could have that score sent to Wake Tech Community College, and then they would receive credit for English 111. And then in theory, they could register for one of these ethics classes in the second semester of their senior year. There would be time to do that. Okay. But typically, students are taking art appreciation, they are taking this communications class, which is great and kind of applies to really any content area that you may want to major in. Communicating with others is kind of a crucial skill. Theater appreciation, music appreciation, or intro to jazz. I'd say those are the most common classes that I have students taking from this section. Okay. Then we go down to the next section on the next page, and we're in the social and behavioral sciences section. Again, within the Associative Arts, they can choose 9 semester hours of credit. Great, up to 3 classes. However, remember, if the high school offers it as AP or IB, you're probably better off taking it there if you can. History, so that's going to be basically 2 classes to get the world history credit, AP world credit. Right? This is 2 classes to get the AP US History credit. This class is not going to be too different than AP US Government and Politics. Psychology, as I mentioned, is going to be the same as AP Psychology. However, economics classes, some high schools offer them, some do not in the AP. So this would be an example where you could add on or enhance what your school is offering using dual enrollment. That's fantastic, right? Same with this sociology class. A lot of the high schools will offer honors or academic level sociology, but not an AP level, right? So that could be a chance for increased rigor. Excuse me. Okay, math. I recommend that you just pretend this math section does not exist. That is my personal opinion, because I just think that learning math online is probably not the best plan for a lot of people. Also, please know that if you think that your student is going to take AP or is going to take pre-calculus algebra at Wake Tech instead of AP pre-calc at your high school, please know that they actually have to take 2 pre-calculus classes at Wake Tech to get the credit instead of the 1 AP pre-calc at their high school. They will have to take pre-calculus algebra, and then second class, they will have to take pre-calculus trigonometry. Whereas if they take AP pre-calc at the high school, it's all one class. So I don't recommend doing these math classes. Okay. Then we're going to get down to science. So Astronomy could be a cool class to take if your student's really interested in astronomy. Geology, so kind of the opposite, right? The stars and the rocks. What do you which area do you want to study? Those two I think could be interesting and valuable, and I don't always see those classes offered at the high schools. But I do not recommend that a student take biology, chemistry, physics at the community college when they can take those classes at their high school. It is really just not going to be in their best interest. And then the last class here is this college transfer success. Do not take that class. That will be a complete waste of your students' time for two reasons. Number one, they're not a transfer student, so the information will be irrelevant. Number two is this one semester credit. One semester credit means that your high school will give 0 credit. Anything less than 3 credits is 0. So don't do the college transfer classes. Now, sometimes students will say, oh, well, I can kind of cobble together between my AP classes and some of these Wake Tech classes. I can basically check off this entire sheet by the time I graduate. Does that mean I'll have my associate in arts degree? No. Here is why. If you were actually completing an Associate of Arts degree through Wake Tech, this page is only step 1. So at Wake Tech, you would do this page first. This gets you about 32 to 33 hours, but it takes about 60 hours to complete a full associate's degree. So if you were at Wake Tech, you would take all of these classes, and then you would take a whole nother year of classes to get the associate's degree, which is why it typically takes 2 years. Okay. Now, really quickly, I just want to show you, because I told you I typically recommend Associate of Arts over Associate of Science. And I have parents telling me, Gina, my kid is a STEM kid. Why are you telling them to get an arts degree? Valid question. First of all, I am not telling them to get the Associate of Arts degree. They're not completing the degree. Second of all, here's why. It's about options. If you notice, it's pretty much all the same classes. Okay. English, which you're not taking. Humanities, here's all the same classes. But look, guys, you can only take 6 semester hours of credit instead of 9. So now you're only limited to 2 choices instead of 3. You do get more math classes, but why would you take online calculus 1 and 2 at Wake Tech when you can take AP Calc, AB, and BC at your high school in person? Not a good plan. Okay. Social behavioral science, same thing. You have all the options, but you can only take 6 credits. So it's only 2 classes, not 3. And then there's more science classes. But again, you're not taking biochem or physics online at Wake Tech. So it doesn't actually give you more classes to choose from in line with what you're interested in. Okay, so I hope that that makes sense. So that's why I typically am recommending Associate of Arts over Associate of Science pathway, because you're not completing the degree and it's just giving you more options. Okay, so those are the college transfer pathways. Now we're going to talk about the CTE pathways. So I'm going to put a link in the chat. Oh, screen share the science offerings. Yes. Lisa, I am so sorry. I thought that I was, but I wasn't. So let me show you. I was talking and saying, look at this. And then it was not. Okay, so I'm just going to go to this. And it was this one, Associate of Science. Okay, so it's the same English classes, but look, only 6 credits instead of 9, right? More math, but not math you're going to take. 6 social science instead of 9. More natural science, but not natural science you're going to take. So it's just not, that's not your best plan. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So now I'm going to share this tab instead. Let's talk about the CTE pathways. So I'm going to put those in. Okay. CTE pathways. All right. There are a lot of them, which is really exciting, okay? And there's all these different categories. So we've got manufacturing, engineering, biotechnology, business, health science, IT, public safety, skills trade, and transportation technology. So cool, so many options. Love this for us. Here's what you need to know about the CTEs though, okay? CTE pathways are great for allowing students to explore specific career fields, career and technical education. That's what CTE stands for. So, what you have to understand is that while the college transfer pathway classes will all transfer to a four-year college or university as long as your student completes them with a C or better, and the majority of them will count towards general education graduation requirements. The CTE classes typically do not transfer to a four-year college or university because they are meant to be career oriented, not academic college oriented. Okay. So the vast majority of the classes in these pathways would transfer back to your high school weighed like an academic class, not an honors class, not an AP class. So while you should not expect a significant bump in weighted GPA from any of these classes, they can be a great way for students to explore content areas that they might be interested in, right? Take a class in the summer and see, hey, do I really like this or not? If my high school doesn't really offer it, take a class in it and just see and know that no, this is not going to add any, weight to your GPA, but it could help you figure out a little bit more towards your major path. Okay. So let's talk about these pathways. Most of them, like I said, are going to be coming back to the high school weighed like an academic class. If you go on Green Hope High School, their CCP page, Green Level High School on their CCP page, Apex High School on their CCP page, they have links that show you how the CTE classes will be weighted when they're transferred back to the high school. Okay, so if you have any question, if you're like, oh, I don't know, I'm considering this, how's it going to weigh? I will tell you that the only two pathways that include every single one of the 4 or 5 classes. So here's the accounting and finance pathway, for example, right? Accounting and finance and business core pathway are the only two CTE pathways as of right now that all of the courses would transfer back to the high school weighed like an AP class. Now, that does not mean that your student who has no interest in business should go sign up for these just to get some weight on their transcript. Because remember, the colleges are looking at why are you taking this class, right? It needs to make sense. Otherwise, they're like, she just took that to try to pad her GPA. Okay. And they're going to disregard it. Okay. But if your student is actually interested in business, that could be really great. If your student chooses the accounting and finance pathway, that means they could choose to take any 1, 2, 3, or all 4 of these classes. Okay. The business core pathway is the same. Every single one of these 5 classes would come back to the high school weighed like an AP class. Okay. So again, you can go to, there's those 3 different high schools. I use their websites often. And I'm going to share, right? This is on Green Hope's website and it shows me all the CTE classes. And look, if I sort A to Z, look, these are the only ones. So only about 20 classes would receive college credit, right? Which means AP weight and transferable to college. Only these classes. All of the rest of them, see how in column F it says standard none? That means that this could be a great class for your student to take, but it's not going to affect their weighted GPA, right? It's just going to be seen as an academic class. But if it's something that's really interesting to your student, the summer is a great time to take a class like that just to learn. Why not? Okay. So again, you have to think about why are you taking the class? So if you have questions about how are these classes going to come in, those 3 high schools, Green Hope, Green Level, and Apex, have links on their CCP pages. And you also certainly should talk to your school counselor and talk to the CCP rep at your high school if you have any questions. But those are the pages I go off of. Okay. So Kim Abbott just asked a great question. Just to clarify, are all classes through Costa or through College Promise virtual? Great question, Kim. Here's the situation. When students go to register for their CCP class, they're going to have a choice. They can register for virtual, hybrid, so a mix of in-person and virtual, or in-person. My strong recommendation is that students register for virtual classes because you have to understand the logistics. If the if the school day doesn't end until, let's say, or the student gets a free fourth, they get out of school at 1, they've got to, if they want to do the class in person, they just need to make sure they book a class that gives them enough time to drive to Wake Tech campus and back, or wherever they're taking the class. The other thing you have to remember is that Wake Tech is on a college schedule, not a high school schedule. So that means that fall classes go from mid-August to early December. Winter classes, or spring session classes, go from mid-January. So it's overlapping with first semester in Wake County, mid-January to mid-May, early May. And then summer classes start in mid-May and go until mid to late July. So again, those classes are starting right after AP exams. So for logistic reasons, usually students are taking the classes online. They have a choice to take them in person, but it just requires an extra step of planning. Okay, I promised I was going to go back to the application. And so that's what I want to show you, because this is the one thing that tends to really mess people up. So back to the application. Student first name, student last name, date of birth. Okay, intended pathway. You have to put the CTE pathway first, because the CTE pathway will not show up in the second option. So intended CCP pathway, I'm going to say, their alphabetical order, college transfer pathway leading to the associate in arts. And then my second pathway, I maybe am not interested in one, or maybe I might be interested in, let's say, that business pathway. Maybe I'm really into that. Where's the business score? Here we go. Okay. I'm going to verify my information is the student's information, not the parent's information, and I'm going to create the account. So picking the pathways, pick your correct pathway from the start, review the classes, decide which classes that you want to have the option to take. Those are the pathways that you're applying to. It is very hard to switch pathways after the fact. Okay. All right. So now let's talk about steps to applying. So when your student goes to apply, the first thing that they're going to need is they're going to have a copy of their high school transcript that they can upload into the Wake Tech application. So I'm going to put this script order. I'm going to give you another link. So some high school counselors will give students a copy of their transcript if they ask for it, or they have different processes for it, etc. So again, I'm deferring to your high schools here. But if they say, no, you have to go get it on your own, here is how you get your student's transcript. Put that in the chat. So you're going to go to scrib order, and I will share my screen again, put it in the chat. Scrib order, boom. Okay. So the student, you just fill out the student's information, only the things that have a red star. That's all that they need. You're going to put their current grade. So if you have a current sophomore, right, 10th grade, put in your address, your phone number. If your student has a learner's permit, driver's license, you put that here. If they do not have any of that yet, you click this little question mark and you click do not have ID, and then you just move on with your life and we keep it moving. Put in your student's email, special instructions for Wake Tech CCP application, add delivery address, other, student first, and last. Okay. And then your address. They're going to email this to you, but you still have to put this in. Save and close. You want this for other, and we've explained why. You want the free copy. It is $0. You are going to put your student's first initial and last initial, and then they're going to do their best with the signature, and you're going to hit update fees, and submit. And within a couple of days, they will be emailed a copy or link to access their transcript. Okay, so that's what they need to do to get their transcript, and then they upload it into Wake Tech. If you have a 9th or 10th grader, you will also update their AIG documentation and any other forms that they're asking for. Get the permission from the parents. The parents have to give permission if the student is in 9th or 10th. If the student is in 11th grade or older, they just need to add in the email address, and they tell you whose email to send it to per high school. But you put the email address for whoever the representative is at the high school to sign off on all the CPP requests, and you hit submit. Okay, so the application is pretty straightforward. Once they've applied, then they're going to get an email, and your kids don't check their email. I love your kids. I work with them. I love them. I see a lot of familiar names here. They're fabulous. They don't check their email. So you're going to have to remind them as much as I remind them to check their email and look for emails from Wake Tech, because they're going to get an email that says they've been admitted. And then they have to scroll down and see that there are 3 things they have to do. 1, they have to set up their Wake Tech student account. 2, they have to attend orientation. It can be done online. It takes like 30 minutes. It's not a big deal. 3, they have to complete their e-learning course, which can take like an hour, but it's basically going to teach them how to use the online system so they can access their classes. They will not be able to register for classes until those 3 things are done. So kind of important. Okay. Registration opens April 10th for summer and fall. Okay. It's like getting concert tickets. You've got to be ready. This is not the time. The day the tickets go live is not the time to be texting your friends, seeing who wants to go, and you have no idea in the stadium where you might want to sit. Like, no, because then by the time you hear from everybody on who's going and who's not going and how much do we want to spend, tickets are gone. You're out of luck. Same thing happens. You've got to be ready. Okay. So you've got to think about, what class do I want to register for? What is my backup? I need to be logged in. Registration typically goes live at 7 a.m. So just be ready to pick your class and register. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. You can go in starting April 1st, play around with the system, see what's being offered, kind of put classes in your shopping cart, right? And be ready. That's what the professionals do. So that when registration goes live, all they have to do is hit register, and boom, they're going to get the class they want. Okay. If they wait too long, they're not going to get in, or they're not going to get a professor that they want, or it doesn't go well. So the sooner you act, the better. So know your plan, have a backup. So maybe you're like, oh, I want to take music, but I'll take communications if I can't get music. Okay. That's really what you need to do. You've got to plan ahead. Okay. So Courtney had a great question. When the student requests the transcript, are they going to get a copy or only Wake Tech? Great question, Courtney. So the student is going to get an email from Scrib Order that says, hey, student, click this link and you can see your transcript. The student will access his or her transcript. They will download it onto their computer so they can see it. They have it. They'll have a copy of it. If they're working with us, they can send it to their counselor. So we can have a copy. And then when you go to the Wake Tech application, you can upload it. Okay. Yes, that's a great question. So the transcript's going to come to the student, and then the student uploads it. Okay. So then after you've applied, those are your key steps. Okay. Like I was saying before, it's super important to understand the schedule. So summer classes begin mid-May, right after APs. Fall classes begin mid-August, before the Wake County school year starts. Spring begins in mid-January, right before your students are taking first semester finals if they're on a block schedule. So when students get enrolled in dual enrollment, they're often balancing 2 different academic schedules simultaneously. So planning ahead and making sure they don't forget anything is really important. The planning ahead is really important. Okay. All right. So that was a lot of information. Here's the bottom line. Okay. Dual enrollment can be an excellent opportunity if you use it strategically. Students should be using this only if it's going to strengthen their transcript, support their academic goals, fit their learning style, and enhance but not overwhelm their learning experience. Okay? If it's approached thoughtfully, it can be a powerful tool in their college strategy. If you want to learn more, you can certainly reach out to us. You can schedule a consultation. We're happy to talk with you. We work with students all the time in dual enrollment. We also have a fantastic blog post I'm going to add here in our comments. So blog, it is a really great, super quick read. But it's about how to choose between honors, AP, IB, and dual enrollment, right? So as you're thinking about course registration, just in general, if you're trying to figure out how to weigh all those options, I definitely recommend checking out that blog post because I think you'll find it really helpful. There have been some great questions coming through already. I am going to open it up for any other Q&A. Right now. So Q&A time. I will be back in March on March 22nd. So talking about how to coach and not take over the college application process for your student. So parent roles in admission, coach, don't captain. So that's what we'll be talking about in March. But yeah, definitely come in with this. Yes. Okay. Oh, yes. Hatal, would you be able to share this video? Oh, Hatal, thank you so much for asking that. Yes. So all of our Facebook Lives are recorded. Like the most recent Facebook Live always lives on our Facebook channel. And then all of our recorded Facebook Lives, every single one I have done for the last couple of years is on our YouTube channel. So I can grab the post here. Let me get that, advcp.com. Our website is a wealth of information. You can also find links to everything on our website, but let me get you to our YouTube copy. You'll just, if you're not sick of my face yet, you will be maybe after you've seen like 1,000 of these videos, but let me go to my comment, YouTube channel, boom. Is it too late to apply? Oh, YouTube. No, I don't want to go to YouTube. Is it too late to apply for a CTE class this summer? No, Jamie, you are not too late. Not at all. So the application just opened for summer for students to start applying to even be eligible to register for a class. So you have plenty of time. This is prime time to go in and submit the application. Wake Tech usually gets back to students with an admissions decision within a couple of weeks. If your student is a freshman or sophomore, I would act sooner rather than later because you will have some of that additional documentation that you need to put up. Also, before your student can register for a class, 9th and 10th graders will need to meet with a Wake Tech advisor, whereas 11th and 12th grade students can just go on and register themselves. So just a couple of extra steps. And let me put in Wake Tech CCP. Let me give you the calendar. I find this really helpful during this season. Wake Tech CCP calendar, just in case you want to see when deadlines and things are. I'll update that. There you go. Okay, that should be coming up through. Hopefully you guys can see that. Okay, great. So many great questions. Wow, thanks for sticking with me. It's been an hour. I told you this was going to be a long one. So thanks for sticking with me and with my raspy voice. I really appreciate it. I hope you all have a wonderful night. Again, if you have questions, we are here. We are happy to help. If you are already working with us, please reach out to your consultant. Like I said, I saw some people I know. So if they have questions, they should reach out to me and I will be probably working with their student to do the applications. They don't have to worry about it. But if you're not already working with us, you can reach out. You can schedule a consultation right on our website and we would love to chat with you. So thanks so much, everybody. Have a wonderful evening and we'll see you back here on March 22nd. Have a good one. Bye-bye.